automation is essential for effective and efficient security testing. When we're looking at web applications, typically the automation we're thinking about is automating the sending of HTTP requests containing our payloads against a web application. But there might also be situations where you want to automate some process within the client-side UI, right, within the browser. This could involve maybe a multi-step form where you're not really interested in all of the individual steps of the form, but you still need to progress through the form in order to get to a stage where you want to actually manually intervene with certain test cases. And it just so happens that there is a tool available for us in Chromium that allows us to automate that otherwise tedious work. So as you can see here, I have Chromium open beside Burp. This is Burp's built-in Chromium. And all I need to do is open up my development tools with F12, click on the More Options menu, otherwise known as the Kebab menu, go down to More Tools and click Recorder. So Recorder, as you can see, is an experimental or under development feature, hence the little flask icon beside the name. But I've tested it a few times. It works at least in simple cases. I have seen it fail in a couple of weird cases, weird kind of quirky UI situations it might not be so robust with. But the tool is very simple to use, so it shouldn't really take much time to investigate it and see if it works for your specific use case. So we're going to go through and make a simple automation here so you can see how it works and get inspired. Unfortunately, we're looking at Portswigger's Gin and Juice Shop, and there wasn't really a super interesting flow that I thought would be great for a demo. So we're looking at a very impractical flow, but nevertheless, it should give you an idea of how the tool is used. So the tool exposes to us this simple create a new recording button, which obviously I'm going to click. And I'm going to call this recording workflow 1. And then it exposes to us a start recording button. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to click start recording. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click to go to the login page. And you'll see that as soon as I take an action in the browser, it's recording that action, right? It's recording the click. And if I click into a field within the UI, it's recording that as well. And I can enter some data here and click login. And it's going to, of course, record that as well. And now I'll just type in testing again for the password and click login. And we'll call that a complete flow, right? So all we've done is navigate to the login page and we've entered testing and testing for the username and the password and try to log in. And of course, it's an invalid username and password. So again, not a very interesting or practical example, but nevertheless, it should show you how to use the tool. And I'm done. So I'm going to click end recording. And now we have a recording that we can replay. So to start us off, I'm going to navigate back to that root page, the landing page here, and let's see what happens when I click the replay button. As you can see, it has navigated us to the login page. It entered testing and testing in the username and password field, and once again, it failed to log in. But crucially, it did that all on its own, right? That process was entirely automated. I didn't have to click anything or type anything, and it replayed it just like that. And a great feature of this tool, additionally, is that you can inspect these recorded actions here, and you can modify them as needed, right? Especially if you're working with a very complex workflow, it may be quite annoying if you record a certain workflow and then you want to make a small change. You don't want to have to go back and re-record a new one. So here we can make tiny changes to try something different. And actually, so here we can look at this in action, because I think a legitimate username and password is Carlos and then Hunter2. So let's see what happens if we change the value of the password to Hunter2 and we change the value of the username that is entered to Carlos. So I've made those changes within the recorded sequence, and I'm going to navigate back to that landing page there, the root page, and then I'm going to click replay. And let's see what happens. So now it should implement those changes, and when it goes to log in, it should use legitimate credentials, and we should end up logged in. And look at that, we do. So now we're legitimately logged in. We've changed our sequence, and it has resulted in a new result. And of course, you can record multiple different workflows or recorded sequences as needed. It's not always something that I think is useful on many tests, but oftentimes there are those situations where you really would like to automate some workflow that you need to go through in the browser maybe just because it's easier to automate in the browser than it would be to automate a sequence of HTTP requests where you're constantly having to pass through different tokens. So this might be easier to get you to some specific state where, again, you want to manually intervene with some type of testing.